You're listening to the Basketball Lab podcast with your hosts Mark Shannon, Mark Clark, and Marco Corona. They'll discuss all the top news and stories from around the basketball world while giving their opinion and insight. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shannon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Clark and Marco Corona. You know, it's finally come to the end. We're nearing the end of this long NBA season, the longest NBA season in NBA history. But it's almost there. We're almost at that finish line. The final should be a good matchup. I think it'll be a good matchup between the two teams. It's two quality teams, two good teams, two teams that have at least one team that's been hot throughout the bubble in the Miami Heat. And, you know, LeBron James and the Lakers. You know, LeBron James, what he brings to the table when he comes to the finals and not just losses. But anyways, what do you guys think going into the finals? Like, what do you think how this series could progress? What are some X factors, stuff like that?
Well, it's fascinating, right? Because, and I think we sort of briefly talked about this before we recorded that, and I think it was you, Shannon, that sent out that stat that both teams finished 10th respectively in their conference last year. And now they are, 4 wins away from being world champs. They've taken, they've got to the same destination and taken different paths. One team was expected to be here. The other team was sort of a surprise, depending on how much you watch them play. We've talked about this numerous times and I personally thought that Miami was the one team that I did not want to face if I was an Eastern Conference team. And, there's 3 teams in the East that found out very quick as to why. So I think it's going to be, there's a storyline pretty much for everything on this series. It's typical NBA. There's no shortage of stories. You have, LeBron James trying to, for lack of a better term, cement his legacy, and we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I think his legacy has been cemented, but some other folks may disagree with that. And then you have, AD, who is a dominant center, is trying to basically say, yes, I am the dominant center, and now I'm going to have a ring to go along with it if we finish the job. And then on the other side, a guy who a lot of people, including myself, was a bad seed in every locker room. And then when he left the team that he left, every team has been worse off for it. And now that he's gotten to Miami, they're here.
Yeah.
And the supporting cast of Miami and the supporting cast of Boston and playoff Rondo and, we're not allowed to talk about Daniel Green. But anyways, I think it's great. I think it's going to be a great series. I'm not going to tell you who I'm picking until we towards the end a little bit, but I'm looking forward. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So I just want to go back to something you just said, Marco, about LeBron James kind of cementing himself to be the legend he is. I'm not sure if you saw or if you guys saw that statement that Scottie Pippen made earlier.
Boy. Here we go.
And I'll read his if I could find it back, I'll read his quote here. This is Scottie Pippen and LeBron James. He said, he still has to prove he can lead a team himself.
Okay,
I think Anthony Davis has shown he's more valuable to them on the offensive end. How do you?
Well, that's a lot to take in. I mean,
I have to readjust.
You have to take into consideration last year, which I'm assuming that's what he's coming off too, because LeBron was in LA last year, and as you mentioned earlier, Marco, they finished 10th. So you're telling me a LeBron James-led Lakers finished 10th last year?
He was injured. For what? He didn't even play the last 20 games, did he? You guys correct me if I'm wrong.
He didn't play a lot of games.
And remember,
I agree, he wasn't.
And I'm not discrediting what your thoughts are, maybe a little bit more what Scotty's saying, and I'm in no position to disagree with.
No, I'm in a
Scotty.
mutual grounds here. I'm not taking sides either
You're
way.
Switzerland, okay.
Switzerland.
This team, but Scottie Pippen's talking like this team, the Lakers, when LeBron was healthy last year, were not contending for a top 3 spot. So did he miss a quarter of the season, Scotty, or what's he smoking?
But isn't he right that this season AD has been a more dominant player than LeBron?
Okay.
Well, he said more valuable.
See, I don't know, man. That's
okay.
You're putting a lot of perspective into Anthony Davis in terms of, I mean,
I'm just playing
at the end of
devil's
the day,
advocate here.
Anthony Davis is not guarding some of the best players in the NBA. You're not asking Anthony Davis to guard Kevin Durant when he's playing. You're not asking him to guard Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. You know, LeBron James has to guard these. Whatever. He'll be, you know, like number 13. I'll be like, I'll call him number 13 from now on. But anyways.
Easy skip.
Right? But no, like, honestly, like, LeBron James, he's asked to guard the best players every single night on the defensive end. You know, he's not asked to just go out and you know, grab rebound, shoot the ball. At the end of the day, there's not very many centers in the NBA. It's not as a center dominant league anymore. Anthony Davis is one of the above and beyond probably the best center in the game right now. You're asking him, you're comparing him to LeBron James in terms of things. LeBron James is also older. He's not the same LeBron James he was 5-6 years ago. You know. Also, last year it wasn't like he was leading a team of Anthony Davis, Jared Dudley, Danny Green, whatever you think about Danny Green, KCP. It was a bunch of scrubs on that team. You know, Ball was on that team.
That was a hand-picked LeBron team, though.
But that's what the media says. That's what the media says. You know, like, nobody knows at the end of the day if LeBron James actually picked that team or he didn't. But what was he going to do?
Come on, we all know LeBron James. Still.
But the thing is, you know, he can't.
LeBron James picked what they had for dinner every day too. We all know.
Well,
that part is true, though.
That part is true, but still, but that's the thing. Like, he wasn't able to go out and get an Anthony Davis until this year. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were just saying, yeah, here you go, take all these players you want, go ahead, do whatever you need. You know, he's not going to lead a team by himself. He's never led a team by himself. Tell me somebody who's led a team by themselves.
Laurie.
No, like, led a team by themselves to a title. Like, that's what I mean. Like, you can't. Most people can't name a team that's led the team by themselves in the last few years to a title. You know, Kawhi Leonard had the Raptors. He had a bench around him.
You're right. Yeah.
LeBron James had Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade. Paul Pierce had Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett were all there. You know, like Steph, Clay. You don't win nowadays, and I don't understand it, with a non-superstar team. Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat could be that first team that wins with one superstar player, one legitimate superstar player, and an elite center. But they're not. You know, that's what I think. I don't think that tarnishes his legacy. I think LeBron James is already LeBron James. He's already top 5 of all best players in NBA history. If he cements this, I think he becomes second behind Michael Jordan, easy. But, I mean, that's just my opinion on it.
So we were just going to skip past Kobe like that?
Yeah. You know, again, Kobe didn't win it. There you go, another one. Kobe didn't win by himself either.
Without shock, yeah.
He did a few times. I'm not going to sit there and say he didn't. He did win a few times where he was, you know, after Shaq left. But at the end of the day, I still think LeBron James, just for what he does, he's a walking triple-double for the most part throughout his career. He's got his NBA championships, all-star selections, gold medals, NBA titles. I mean, there's no knocking what he's done. I think this would be cementing him as probably the top 2, if not top 3. Well, maybe we'll put Kobe in there in terms of that, but top 3 for sure as a top 3 player.
Marco, I see you itching to get a word in here.
How much time do I have? Okay. First of all, what is LeBron cementing himself for? I understand the 3-6 record is like the scarlet letter, right? And I'm aging myself by using that reference, but I understand he's 3-6 in finals. it's still 9 final trips. It's still 3 championships, right? So again, I'm not sure where the Scottie Pippen challenges of this thing that he has to do this, he has to do that. He doesn't have to do anything because he's already there. All right. And I've been a LeBron hater from day one. Anybody who knows me, and I've said this before, he's not my guy. But at the end of the day, you have to respect his accomplishments. And what Scottie Pippen is referring to or alluding to is almost like everything that he's done is sort of irrelevant. And to me, it doesn't make sense. Scottie Pippen, with all due respect, and I'm just going to say it, was a second fiddle on a team that had the greatest superstar in our generation. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to get into this GOAT thing because it's a waste of time. But LeBron James has done more for the game of basketball in the last 15 years, or 17 years he's been in the league, than any of us could have imagined when he suited up that first regular season game against the Sacramento Kings. I will never forget that. So, and he's evolved, and he does all the things that you want a basketball player to do, whether you've liked his career path or not, or the decisions he's made, for lack of a better term. That's a completely different narrative. But for Scottie to sit there and talk about this, that, and the other, to me, it sounds like a bit of old guy sour grapes.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I just spent almost a minute and a half defending LeBron James after all the years that I spent tearing him down.
It's peak 2020 for you, eh?
This is classic 2020, right? But I think that LeBron James has done whatever he needs to do. And I think maybe what Scottie has it wrong. And I think that this will just re-solidify, if anything, right, how his greatness. Because now you're talking about winning a championship in Miami. And I understand that was a stacked team. 3, maybe 2 for sure, Hall of Famers on that team. He did something special in Cleveland, being down 3-1. And I know the Warriors and other circumstances gave that shit away. But you still have to finish the job, and he did it. And now he's on the verge of doing that in one of the greatest franchises in basketball.
Could I just
end of story?
Yeah, and just jump in terms of, I mean, we're not talking about winning a championship this year. I'm gonna put it out there. I think this year is probably one of the hardest championships to win in terms of
course,
you know, they talked about it last night when I was watching the hockey game there. So people were already bashing them and saying, it's not the same. There's an asterisk, blah, blah, blah.
No.
I think this is the toughest one to win. They've had to sacrifice a lot over the last few weeks to get to this point. Not sacrificing, not seeing family, sacrificing all this stuff, sitting in a hotel room 24/7 for the most part.
Emotional and mental pressure, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to be, and that just puts another level on top of what could become of either of these teams that win. In my opinion, I think if LeBron wins, it adds to his legacy of what he already is. A elite player, a superstar player. He's one of the best players to ever play. He's definitely probably the first or second or third, whatever you guys, that's like we said, it's up for debate in terms of that, to ever play in my generation. But this year will be that year that you can't knock their accomplishment of winning an NBA title. Just like they tried to do with the Raptors last year, this year is just the same thing. You can't knock that title. If they win, they win. It's the mental, like you said, Mark, the emotional, all that stuff with the boycotts, the Black Lives Matter movement, all that stuff, all wrapped into one, plus the pandemic. There's nothing you could take away from this title, winning this title.
I'm gonna make this crazy take. Sorry, Mike. I just want to jump in.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
I think that, and I just really thought about this. I think that we were all spoiled as fans by watching Golden State, and I didn't even think I was gonna have to speak about Golden State. Watch Golden State do what they did for the previous 5, 6, 7 years, 6 years really. That there was an expectation, and you knew that Golden State was going to be there. So now everything else sort of it's almost like a reverse discount, right? And to your point, the Raptors were not supposed to be there, and they were. And this is good. Diversifying your NBA finals in a sense of making things different every year is a good thing, in my opinion. Just like it's a good thing to have dynasties to a certain point, right? So in those years, I think that we've all forgotten that this guy regardless, has been involved in pretty much every final in the last decade.
Yep.
Regardless of the outcome. 3 and 6 don't lie. It's equals
Yeah.
9. So, and the 1 year that he was not in the finals, he was injured.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the team did not make the playoffs. So I think that tells you more about the individual and his value. And if you want to debate, by the way, first of all, Anthony Davis finished 6th in MVP voting, did he not?
Yeah.
Okay, so that Scottie Pippen comment goes out the window unless he had a vote. And Anthony Davis was definitely the best player on the Lakers, but he was not the most valuable player.
No.
Based on where their careers are right now, Anthony Davis is the better player as far as his skill set because he's still in the peak of his career. It doesn't mean that LeBron is in the back nine, but I mean, and he's still doing things that are out of this world, and he still finished second in MVP. So my rant is over.
I think I get what Scottie Pippen was hinting to, but I disagree. At this point in LeBron's career, and I'll keep it short, with what we've seen LeBron done over the years, and he's closer to retirement than anything. Like, LeBron doesn't have anything to prove at this point. He's already proved that in Miami. He's already proved it when he went back to Cleveland. And he doesn't really have anything to prove at this point. His legacy alone speaks for him right now. So I think Scotty's is way out, even though I kind of understand what he's hinting to, but even his legacy speaks for him. And there's nothing for LeBron to prove right now at this point in his career at all.
If anything, the one guy who has more to prove is Anthony Davis.
I thought you were going to say Paul Pierce, but okay.
Who? Can we not? Let's not even get into that. I'm not. Just like they do a challenge and then get
You know, and just before we go back into the actual series that we were actually talking about, you know, teams had to build superstar teams to beat LeBron James. You know, LeBron James didn't build a superstar team to beat other teams. You know, yeah, he went to Miami and he built that superstar team. They won their titles. He went back to Cleveland, and then Golden State had to bring in Kevin Durant to beat him. The Raptors had to bring in Kawhi. He left and went to the Lakers, and that was the Raptors' chance to win last year, right? You know what I mean? Teams had, and that just shows you what kind of a player he was. You know, you had teams did it with Kobe. You tried to build teams to beat those guys, because those were the guys that are at the top of the table every single year. But I don't know. Back to the series. This series, like I said at the beginning of this, it's going to be a good series. I think the matchups are going to play a key factor in this series. We touched on it. Anthony Davis, you know, he's going to play a key role in this. And on the Heat side, Bam Adebayo. Those two are going to be going at it back and forth. That's two really good centers going back and forth. It's going to be a really, really good battle, I think. But that matchup, though, could go different ways because, you know, the Lakers like to play big and the Heat like to play a little bit smaller in terms of putting Bam at the center spot. If the Lakers go big, you know, Dwight Howard's going to be the center. Anthony Davis is going to be the power forward. Who do you put Bam against? That's my thing. Like, I don't know, who do you put Bam against? You put him against Howard and let you know, somebody else guard Anthony Davis, or do you put Bam and hope that Dwight Howard doesn't crash the boards and get a lot of boards and put up points and stuff like that?
I think that you let Howard roam. I think that you let him guard a Bam until you get sort of in foul trouble, which it's likely to happen. Yeah. And you let Anthony Davis do his thing, and you basically are forcing a mismatch, right? But I mean, that's where Spoelstra is going to adjust, I am sure, and I'm sure that he's cooking up something. But yeah, that's a great point, because there's an opportunity there for a great matchup and also a great mismatch. Yeah, if that makes sense, right? And it's going to be fascinating to watch how Dwight Howard, or even JaVale McGee, if they try to spell a few minutes, give some guys a little bit of a rest, how they adjust to that, and then how the Miami Heat counter to that, right? I'm interested to see Tyler Hero. I'm interested to see, Jimmy Butler. I mean, obviously, Jimmy's going to, I assume he's going to be on LBJ at some point, or there's going to be some sort of switches. And, Robinson, is it Robinson from Miami?
Yeah, Duncan Robinson.
It's fascinating. And I'm also interested to see how the Lakers bench does, where Rondo creates problems with his IQ, right? Never mind his skills, but his IQ creates problems with the Miami Heat. Man, it's going to be great. I'm going to just jump right into it. In saying all that, I still is going to stick to my prediction, and I said the Lakers will be here. So you don't get this far to just get this far. Lakers in 6.
It's going to be a really interesting matchup, and it should be a fun series. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better series, but there are going to be a few key factors for each team if they want to win. For Miami, they have to be shooting their 3-ball have to be dropping. If they are not shooting threes like Game 1 and Game 2 for Boston, they're going to probably get swept, or it's going to end in 5 games. They have to be shooting that 3-ball. If their 3-ball went downhill in games 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the previous series, but they really need to pick that back up. For the Lakers, it's gonna as you mentioned, touch on a little bit just now, Marco. Rondo has to be as big for them as he was in the previous series. AD, he has to get going, and Lakers have to avoid the foul trouble as quite a few of the players did in the previous series as well. But all in all, it should be a great series, and I'm gonna go with Miami in 7.
Wow. Holy, that's
You set us up for that.
Yeah.
I like what you did there. You were going this way, and then it's like, anyways, Miami in 7.
Yeah, like
That's
honestly.
exactly what you did. Okay, so I have myself in 6, Clark in 7, Miami.
Miami, yeah.
Okay, Shannon, you're up.
Like I said at the beginning of this, it's going to be a great series. I think it's going the full distance. I think it's going 7. But the Heat 3-point shooting is a key factor in this. If they get hot, they're hard to stop. You know what I mean? Like, they're a hard team to stop when they shoot the 3. And the Lakers lack 3-point shooting in their last series, the last few series. You know what I mean? They've struggled to hit the 3. They're relying on LeBron and Davis to do a lot of the dirty work.
Bully ball.
Yeah, right. They're the Heat zone defense. They throw that at you. That's going to be tough. Like LeBron he's not shooting the ball really well in the bubble. He's shooting well below his averages. He's not shooting the ball from 3 that well, outside 16 feet. But he likes to drive. He likes to take fouls. He likes to do that. But the Miami zone isn't like a natural zone. They don't. They make it hard for you to attack the rim because of Bam, because of Kelly Olynyk, because they've got a lot of size in there. They don't draw. They don't give out a lot of fouls as well. Like they limit their fouls when they're in the zone. And I think the Lakers are going to have to rely on hitting those 3 points in the zone. You're going to have to rely on Danny Green's going to have to step up. KCP, Rajon Rondo, right?
That's funny.
All those guys are going to have to step up. Anthony Davis is he going to get out onto the 3-point line? They're going to have to try, kind of like what the Celtics did a little bit against the Heat last series. Mismatch hunt. That's what the Lakers are going to have to do with the Heat. They're going to have to try and get Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero in those pick and roll situations, even Kelly Olynyk in those pick and roll situations against LeBron, against Davis, those kind of guys, and drive the hoop and get them into foul trouble, driving kicks, stuff like that. But I think Spoelstra has a game plan. I think he has a game plan set out, and that's why I think it's going to go 7. But I think that the Lakers do etch it out in 7. I just think that the veteran leadership and the championship pedigree of LeBron James is going to come out right now. And he's got, Butler's on a mission. We know that he's on a business trip, as he says. But LeBron James is on a mission. Kobe, Black
They
Lives
have more experience too.
Exactly. They have more experience in terms of, titles and getting into the playoffs and playing in the finals. But like I said, LeBron has a lot of things that he's got on his shoulders that he's shouldering. Like I said, the Black Lives Matter movement, Kobe Bryant, this would just solidify what was, a tough season for them in terms of, Kobe passed away, the pandemic hit. Now they're in the bubble, Black Lives Matter, all that stuff plays a factor into it. And I think that LeBron James has a lot of fuel, and he's going to push through and win this in 7. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well said. You know what? One thing that we didn't talk about quickly before we move on to the next thing, I think that the Lakers also have to get into the fast breaks. Yeah. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 2 top teams, one is out and the other one's in the finals, ironically, is the Lakers were number 1 in fast break points. The Toronto Raptors were number 2.
Yeah.
Right? The Raptors could not get any fast break points and they went home. And the Lakers have to keep the pressure up because, to your point, and I think it was you, Clark, that said it, and we also talked about this before, the one area of weakness that Miami Heat have and Boston could not capitalize because they did exactly the same thing, was it have a tendency sometimes of going cold. And if they're missing shots and the Lakers can catch them on a fast break, you're talking about a few 10-0 runs, 15-0 runs. And I know the Miami defense is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, you're talking about top 5 teams as far as defense. But fast breaks will kill you. And if they can capitalize on that, if Miami goes cold, this could be a shorter series than anticipated, but I still think it goes at least 6. And 7 wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you, but we'll see.
Sorry, I was just thinking, who on and the Heat has final experience other than Iguodala?
Nobody.
No one.
Well, there's only one guy who's not playing.
Who?
Right? Haslam.
Yes, that's the one I was going to say.
Yeah.
But he's like a coach.
No, I'm talking about active players who are playing.
That's it.
It's only Iggy.
It's just Iguodala.
Wow.
That's it.
And
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say sometimes that's overrated because when you have no experience, sometimes ignorance can be bliss, right? And you just go with it. And the fact that, number one, they're not experienced, I don't think it's going to be a factor because there are no fans. You're not playing you're not going to Staples Center. You're not playing in the American Airlines Arena in Miami or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
There is not that added pressure of playing in front of 20, 25,000 fans just trying to either boo you or cheer you on. Yep. So I think that's where experience in this setting sort of is a wash.
Yeah.
Because there is not that added pressure from the noise around you.
Yeah.
Now, experience in certain execution points and series of the actual game itself, that's where sometimes I will agree with you that may play a factor, but I don't think in this particular case it's not necessarily that big of a deal.
And on the experience point, I think we have to give Jimmy Butler some credit here, because some props here, because it seemed like he is actually the person or the voice to be like calming them down and just like giving them that speech to like get back into the game and let's win it. And he's the main guy that's like has all the players keeping them together and keeping them on track. It seemed to me.
Yeah,
I don't think it seems. I think it is.
No,
it is.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that he's the locker room leader. I mean,
he's on a mission,
right? We've had multiple times where he was in Minnesota where he had the blow ups, the dust ups. Philadelphia, he went there and they didn't gel as much as they would have liked. He's coming here and I think he just being that number one guy, that veteran presence on that team has uplifted those rookies, those young guys, the Tyler Heroes, the Duncan Robinsons, the Kendrick Nunns, those guys they're looking up to Jimmy Butler, his work ethic, the way he plays the game, the way he talks the game in terms of, even in the media, in terms of, he's not there for fun. He's not there to go out and, make the playoffs, make the finals and end in 5 games. He's there to win that championship. He wants
Can
to
I
bring a
ask this,
championship.
Was Jimmy Butler more, was he misunderstood with his previous teams, or is he now more mature?
I think it's a combination of both, right?
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes, well,
Because it's a 180 for him in Miami. It's totally different from what he's been with the other teams, right?
Is it though? Like, just think about that for 1 second, what you just said, because look at the way the teams are constructed. First of all, Minnesota has been a disaster as long as I can remember, right? Okay, that's a watch.
But Butler took the heat for that.
Right. He orchestrated his way out of it, and he was trying to get these guys to toughen up, and they wouldn't. And, Andrew Wiggins came out and said he never had a problem with Butler, right? So I don't know if he's throwing shade on. He said, actually, the exact quote was, "I never had a problem with him. He was a great teammate. Other guys may have." Okay, let's just cut to the chase. I think he's talking about who, right? Cap.
Yeah.
Okay. Chicago, again, another disaster. He wanted to stay in Chicago. He wanted to build something there, and they said, "Man, Philadelphia, that's a joke." I mean, that whole team was
we
built
just
to
blame
fail.
Philly and Brett Brown's fault.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But what team was built to fail? And the irony I find about Philadelphia is that Jimmy Butler was built to be a 76er. If you really think about everything that you just said,
I agree. Yeah.
He can be a jerk sometimes. Check. He can be abrasive. Check. He's talkative.
Leader.
He's a mouthpiece. Check.
Yeah.
And he's a good basketball player. Check, 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 check.
Yeah.
So they got him out of there. And now, no surprise, you came into a team similar to the Toronto Raptors, where the supporting cast was already there, and they just needed a guy to lead the way.
Yep.
Oh, surprise, surprise, they're in the finals.
Yeah. No, so, I totally agree with you on that. I think that, he's I don't know if he's matured 100% in terms of, he's going to be a different guy come next year. He's not going to be the same guy he was before, but he's definitely matured on the basketball court, I think, in terms of taking that leadership role and putting the team on his back in terms of fighting for a title and contending and not backing down from players and stuff like that. I think that he's matured in that level, but he still talks too much, but at the end of the day, talking at this level, it throws off your opponents. It throws your players off. Look at Pat Beverly. No, he doesn't throw anybody off. Every time we have a podcast,
we
Beverly,
really can't get through a podcast
without naming Pat Beverly.
Come on, man.
But no, sometimes you could, what? Jimmy Butler can talk all he wants because at the end of the day, he backs it up with his play on the court. He backs it up with his play on the court, way he plays defensively, way he plays offensively. He backs it up when he's on that court.
Right. If he's on your team, you like him.
Exactly.
Right? That's just the way it is. And there's a few guys in the league that you can say that about. Lowry, Jimmy Butler, right? Rondo, right? Guys who are just a pain in the ass. I'm not talking about that guy in the Clippers, Patrick, whatever his name is. But he's a valuable player. And I think, maturity has a lot to do with it, maybe or maybe not. But he also orchestrated a lot of his exits.
Yes.
I give him a lot of praise for being a leader, but let's just call it what it is. He orchestrated a lot of his exits, excluding Chicago. That was a forced exit. But here they are, and it is what it is. So we'll see how far it gets him.
You know what I think? I think it was a coaching issue. I feel like his previous coaches didn't know how to deal with him. And now Eric knows exactly how to go about it and how to deal with him and let him actually have a voice and be that voice for his team. I feel like probably the coaches felt disrespected or threatened by his authority, by him, but I don't know what it is. But I think it was a coaching issue. He just didn't have the right coach and someone that knows how to deal with his type of personality. And Miami is the best fit or is the right fit for him, and he's showing that right now.
Yep. You got to finish the job now, right?
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram at _basketball lab, on Twitter at @BBallLab. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Basketball Lab, and you could find us on iTunes and Spotify.